The Walking Dead, Season 1, Episode 2 thoughts. This episode is called Guts. Another episode I love, and it's just like with the first one, spoilers for these first two episodes. The episode, let's see, I don't know, I'm thinking TV 14 rating, something like that. That is what this video will be. Let's dive right in. So, a lot of the things that I said of the first episode are true of this one as well, so I'm going to try not to restate anything. One thing I have no idea how I managed to forget, but I think I somehow forgot to mention the amazing sound design in episode 1, and that carries over here. They do such an amazing job making it, you know, when someone is surrounded by walkers, it really does feel, let's see, I think that was especially near the end of episode 1. You know, it really does feel like they are insurmountable. They're all over. And in this one, you know, carving up the walker so they can rub guts on their clothes. You know, which they were going to do anyway, but, you know, if it helps against walkers, that's a plus. Yeah, just fantastic. I also really appreciate, you know, I wouldn't go so far as to say that the show, like, milks, at least not overly so, but it does let stuff really play out. You know, when there's a tense scene or a dramatic scene in both of these episodes, it actually is allowed to play out. You know, there's too much media these days that doesn't, maybe especially like franchise media and such, that just is in too much of a hurry, and it's worried about upsetting the audience too much. And yeah, love to see it here. I think that is it for the stuff that is the case for both of these. So, with the first one, they kept it very focused on just a few characters. You know, we saw several faces that we didn't really get to know. In this one, we meet a bunch more. You know, now that, you know, the first one sets some ground rules, and, you know, it's especially meant to get you involved. You know, it's starting off, but it's not, you know, there needs to be, you know, places for these follow-up episodes to go. And yeah, in this one, we meet an entire group of survivors, and we get a sense of who each of them are, individually as well as, you know, part of the group. And yeah, actually, a few more, some details on that. You know, we put a face to the voice, you know, and not long, yeah, we meet Glenn, and, you know, he admits that it was probably naive of him to save Rick, but he just couldn't, you know, he couldn't let him just die there. You know, and at first Rick is like, I don't know, I don't know if I feel like it's safe to leave this tank. There's so many walkers out there. And, you know, the character played by actor Steven Yeun is like, okay, I mean, you could stay. Tell you what, why don't I read you Paul Brothers quotes? Tweets. I am gonna start with what one of them said about Nope. And at that point, Rick is like, you know what? There's worse things out there than being eaten alive by walkers, and, you know, sprints off. But yeah, you know, clearly, you know, yeah, he is perhaps the most sensitive of the group, and the one, maybe the one with the biggest heart. You know, we don't really see, you know, the others before Rick has already been saved, but I get the sense that there were votes against helping him, and Glenn was like, I cannot leave him there, you know. And okay, so names are gonna be a problem. Okay, the Latino immediately tries to talk the blonde out of shooting, and I appreciate that. After, you know, he also calls her bluff. You know, he says, okay, put the gun down or shoot. Because we both know that you're not going to shoot him. You're frustrated, and that's understandable, but we have to keep moving. You know, we need to deal with this situation. And let's see. And yeah, I really appreciate her frustration is 100% understandable. And let's see. The yeah, the African American woman did not start saying anything right away. I kind of get the sense that she's someone who only starts talking if she thinks people will listen. You know, the moment that they're like, you know, I don't know, how do we get out of here? And, you know, nobody's really bringing up good ideas. She's like, the sewers. Or wait, I think someone maybe says something about the sewers, and someone else tries to shoot it down. It's like, that doesn't make sense. And she's like, yes, it does. I know this, you know, was it this particular building or this type of building? Something like that, you know. And, you know, later she does also try to de-escalate a situation. But for a while, she doesn't really say anything because it's, you know, I get the sense that she feels like they're not actually going to listen to me. You know, it's not going to accomplish anything. Why waste my breath? Why waste the energy? And I love that she immediately, as soon as she gets a chance to, she tends to the black guy's, you know, injury. And let's see. I think that does more or less cover the ones that I have a lot to say about. Right. That does, of course, leave the character Merle Dixon, played by, I don't know. I don't know why his name stuck. Merle Dixon, played by Michael Rooker. Now, there are a lot of people who have a very intense fondness for Michael Rooker, and I'm 100% one of those people. I cannot get enough of him. It is always a good day if you're watching something that he appears in. He's good in stuff that's crap. You know, what was that one with the, I think it was called Shadow Builder? Like, wow, that really was deeply underwhelming. But he made it much more watchable. You know, I have never been unhappy to see him in something. And this show knows how to use him, you know. There's some charm when he's trying to talk the black guy into, you know, he's like, come on, we can work together on this, you know, get me out of here, you know. But there's also this sense of threat, of danger to him. He could explode at any moment. And, you know, he is really good at playing characters that we can really engage with, even though they're kind of despicable in at least some ways. Like, he is such a racist. You know, he's not just like mildly, you know, yeah, it's a pretty, yeah. And like, he's attacking people who are part of his own team. Like, it's, you know, it's kind of a trope in zombie fiction. I'm not complaining, but, you know, it's a trope that there will be some conflict between, you know, different survivors. It's pretty clear, like, he didn't meet these people like 5 seconds ago. You know, they all went here together. He knows that, you know, like, if he 100% doesn't trust any of these people, why did he go with them, you know? So, and he still attacks just because of white supremacy. He can't handle, you know, an African American telling him, you know, yeah, you know, even though what he's doing is, objectively speaking, a bad idea. You know, he can't handle if one of the people telling him, pointing out this is a bad idea, is an African American, you know. And let's see, right, I also appreciate that they don't immediately subdue him. That would feel a little too easy. And, you know, when he is subdued, right, I also like that, you know, let's see, the blonde does try to, like, talk him down, I think, as far as I recall, the only people who tried who tried and failed to actually, break up the fight, or was it? Certainly, at least most of them were guys, because I'm not going to pretend like I would probably also in that situation, and ultimately Rick does manage to, and yeah, goes like full cop mode, cuffs him, and it's like, this what was it like? I think it was like a blunt. This could mean like several years if you're not careful. Is this your first strike? Just yeah, and he throws it off the roof, and Murray's like, no, don't do that. Just yeah. I'm sorry. That's slightly amusing considering, you know, this guy is so utterly hateful. This really racist Southerner, or for short, Southerner. I have actually encountered IRL Southerners. Yeah, a lot of the stereotypes are absolutely true. Now, let's see. I think that does. Yeah, I love how this does that thing that sometimes. So this is technically not a sequel. It's an additional episode in a show, but it does the thing that a lot of great sequels do, like Empire Strikes Back, for example, by making, taking the threat that was already established and making it even greater. Yeah, the Empire was already a threat, but now they're ramping up, and here, yeah, it looked like, Rick's certainly in trouble. At least there's one guy who can maybe help. And then we find out, oh, there's like half a dozen people in this one area. And now all the walkers are after them. That makes it so much more, it's especially because we get to know them. We thought that it was this one guy, which is already, like, because we're engaged, we want to see him reconnect, with wife and son. But all of these people who are clearly, the show so far is doing such a great job making everybody a human being. Like, Merle is an asshole, but he's a very believable, like, people like him exist in the real world. He's not like a cartoon character. And, it's, part of it's the writing, part of it is Michael Rooker is just that good. Now, I think. And also, he knows when to pull back slightly and when to push it really far. Like, by the end of the episode, I do still want him to make it. I'm concerned about, like, if he does make it, he is not gonna be very forgiving of the black guy. And that is also, you see the bigotry brain rot on full display when he's like, you dropped that key on purpose. I mean, come on, man. How could you possibly, literally the only way for someone to believe that based on, he saw it. It's not like the black guy came up there and was like, I don't know where the key is. I had it 5 seconds ago. And like, that would be like, really, and I get why in the ambulance, like, the others are like, wow, I guess you really were that, you really don't want him to make it, do you? But, Merle saw it with his own eyes, the key, like, certainly if he was going to purposefully lose the key, why would he trip and fall like that? He could have hurt himself. Like, clearly and it's one of those, I sometimes I do enjoy a comeuppance kind of thing. If Merle hadn't attacked the black guy, he wouldn't have tripped. It was clearly because of the assault. He was perfectly fine before that. We saw him at the start of the episode. Now, I think that... Right, yeah, really appreciate they did a great job at the end of the first episode. Rick is, like, basically trapped inside the tank, but at least there's at least one guy out there who... it seems like that was also great. Like, there's a lot of walkers out there. That's the bad news. Any good news? No. And also, I am so glad that I got to see Stephen Yeun imitate a zombie. You know, he's like, I think they're starting to catch on. You know, "Urgh." And it seemed to work. Like the other, you know, the other zombie was like, okay, Leonardo kind of thick. Okay, don't be such a stereotype. You're making the rest of us look bad. You know, but yeah, you know, it seemed like, you know, Rick, I don't know how exactly he's gonna make it, but maybe there's a chance. But all of these people, and, you know, there's glass and the zombies are breaking through, which, you know, from the survivor's perspective is very scary. They, you know, these zombies have bricks and everything. There's, you know, breaking down into this, you know, into this, like, is it a mall? It's certainly a store. From the point of view of these walkers, I think they may believe that they're technically in the original, you know, Dawn of the Dead, and they're like, Tom Savini might be around. I have to get his autograph. If you're watching this video right now and you have no idea who Tom Savini is, please look him up and then watch some of his stuff. You're welcome. Yeah, I thought they did a really great job with how, you know, right from very early in the episode, it's clear, like, that's not going to keep very long. Like, you know, they're going to have to escape very, very soon. And yeah, it's like, you know, they can't exactly just go out the way they came. Not anymore. And let's see, right, yeah, another thing about Merle, he wouldn't have even gotten cuffed if he hadn't been so threatening, you know, that he assaults the black guy, and then he's like aiming his gun, calling for votes. I love that the black woman flipped him off as, like, you know, she'll raise her hand, but it's to flip him off, you know, just, yeah, fantastic. And let's see, yeah, you know, the fact that he's locked up by the end of the episode is 100% his own fault. You know, even after he was handcuffed, he's sitting there, like, threatening the black guy, you know, making it even less likely that he'll be released. But that is bigotry. You know, he literally can't handle the idea that someone he's bigoted towards has more power and control than he does. You know, just, yeah. And let's see, I think that does get us nicely to, yeah, the sewer, very nice and creepy. And I really appreciate that there were rats down there, because, you know, that is extra work. You gotta have a wrangler on set. It's, you know, more to have to deal with, but it really adds. Like, you know, they end up not being in the sewer for very long. They reach the great, pretty, you know, the not great very quickly, but you still get a real sense of the, you know, yeah, it feels so disgusting down there, you know, so. And it was very clever, this thing of, you know, if all of us get down there, you know, the ones at the back might block the ones at the front, you know. And, let's see, yeah, the one walker on the other side of the grate, very effective scare there. And then we have the, let's see, I think that does get us nicely to yeah, once they start talking about, oh right, yeah, actually I think before that, the part where, you know, in the store, you know, Blonde is looking at this jewelry, and, you know, it's like, what was it, like, my sister would really like this, and we find out, you know, Amy is the sister back in with the survivors that we saw at the end of episode 1, and, or I guess not the very end, but, you know, late in episode 1. And let's see, we have the yeah, you know, Rick is like, what exactly is stopping you from taking it? And, you know, well, there's a cop looking right at me, and, you know, he's like, oh, what, you think, like, when the shooting starts, when the looting starts, the shooting starts? This is the zombie apocalypse. I don't really think this is the right time. You know, it's not like this is the California wildfire. To be clear, I have nothing but empathy for, you know, the people who actually were, you know, hurt and lost property. You know, I think it's horrible, and yeah, the government should do a significantly better job helping, and it is sadly not very surprising that they aren't. You know, conservatives really do not care much for, yeah, we really gotta, America has to elect someone much, much further left than we've seen in recent years, if anything's going to change for the better. Right, James Woods, apparently, you know, a while back, well, I forget the exact date, but before, you know, he has tweeted that I'm not going to quote the exact, but he was not on the side of the Palestinians. Let's go with that. Very, very much not. And now he's saying that, you know, losing property is like losing a loved one, which, like, yeah, some people really do not feel sorry for anyone but themselves. Like, holy crap, dude. Palestinians lost substantially more than property. Now, let's see, you know, they talk about the zombies recognizing, and they point out, you know, it seems to be by smell. That makes a lot of sense. You know, clearly they have fairly limited, like, higher brain function left. You know, near the start of the episode, one of them, you know, or more than one is struggling with a ladder, you know, which I think it is credible enough that they could figure out climbing the tank, but not a ladder, because it is slightly different. You know, like climbing the tank is essentially like stepping over something or stepping onto something. You know, where a ladder is perhaps the kind of thing where you do need to. Yeah. Let's see, but the smell, and so they hatch the idea. And I will say, I did have to focus on not thinking about the Stumbling Dead or Shaun of the Dead when they're imitating zombies, but I got there. It was a really, really tense scene, and I think they paced it incredibly well. Like, I am glad that it wasn't over much, much sooner, because it was incredibly tense, especially once the rain, you know. And everything was going so well. And before I talk more about the rain, I can't spend too much time on you know, it can't rain all the time, but you know, they managed to drag in one of the walkers that they took out when they rescued Rick Rescue Ranger, and yeah, you know, they're careful to have gloves on. Right, I did not realize, you know, they put, in this episode, they straight up say, don't get any on your skin, not just, what are they, you know, eyes, you know, so, yeah, I mean, I can see how, because, like, if all you really need is blood, like a tiny cut could do, so you don't want to get any on any of your skin. Yeah, makes sense. And, yeah, you know, the Rick is chopping up, and you know he has to get one of the others to help as well, and you know they're rubbing it on. You know, I really, really want there to be an outtake where one of them goes, "Gore fight," and they start like pelting each other with, you know, entrails and such. I got a morbid sense of humor. What do you want? But and you know, Glenn, you know, I appreciate the thing. You know, I think I'm gonna do that later, and technically that was later. You know, he didn't say, like, much later. And you know, legitimately clever to be walking, yeah. And yeah, the rain washes off the smell, and again, completely realistic. That is a thing that actually, yeah. And you know, the walkers take this about as well as, like, if you're wearing the wrong cologne. In their defense, maybe to a walker, a living human being, the scent of a human is like Axe body spray, in which case, justified. And to be clear, I'm not saying I would, eat someone who was wearing body spray. It smells way too bad. Anyway, let's see. Right, also great with the radio, and, still I suppose I should keep it vague, because I think... No, wait, did they say the name in this one? Crap, yeah. Sometimes I struggle to recall details. Let's go with the mother and child back at camp. Still don't hear the voice, nor does he hear theirs on the other end. So yeah. Again, I feel confident that I know exactly who they are, but just in case, I suppose I should keep it. Yeah. Anyway, I think that might cover... Right, yeah, the whole thing with the ambulance was very, very clever. Yeah. It was really intense when they have to fight off some walkers after the rain, and, they climb, the two of them climb a fence like they are Katie Stoll and her stunt double at the end of I want to say pre-cracked sketch. Like, in internet years, it's ancient, but I still think it's funny. And yes, I'm pretty sure I watched it back in the day, but it is fresh in my mind because it was discussed and cracked in a relatively recent video. I guess by now, weeks, maybe a month or more, but yeah, if you haven't been watching... Did I say Katie Stoll? Holy crap. Katie Willert. I swear I can tell the Katies apart. I'm a big fan of both of them. I think they are both incredibly talented. But yeah, the Katie Willert Experience, if you haven't been watching that on Cracked, absolutely make sure you do so. Now, what was the other... Right, yeah. So they climb the fence, and, the walkers are not on the fence. They are very much, chow time. But yeah, very clever to grab, get in an ambulance, and also, start a car alarm so as to, to lure the walkers away. And I really love the bit at the end where he's just trying, they're in the ambulance, like, where's Glenn? And then we cut, and 100%, I support using that exact frame again, because that is the exact framing from the first episode. It just looks so good, just with all the abandoned cars on one side and complete emptiness on the other. Just fantastic. It really tells the story. And seeing him drive through, it's like, woo! That was great. But yeah, ambulance will hold all of them. And let's see, yeah, and the noise distraction was also very clever and uses the rules that we have already had set up. That was said in the first episode, noise attracts them. And let's see, I think... Right, one more thing about episode 1. We're told that it's safer to walk during the day than at night. At night, they'll really congregate. Which does mean that the city full of walkers, that is an especially intense, dangerous area to be, which is part of why, the mother character said, we gotta put a sign up to warn people about going in there. And, that also tells us just how desperate the survivors we meet in this episode were to even go there, even though it does exist. And I think that does get us to... Right, so I would definitely say it seems like the next episode is going to have Rick reach the camp of survivors. I was wondering, how long they were going to, because it is one of those things where if, again, I don't know for sure if it is going to be next episode, but I could imagine, because it certainly seems, like the distance is not too great to, and let's see but yeah, it's one of those things where, Rick meeting back up with Shane and getting to this safe-ish place, if you take way too long to, then it's going to feel padded. And at the same time, you have to build to it. I'm really, really glad that he didn't reach it at the end of episode 1. We would have missed out on this entire episode. Right. There's a couple of things I want to say about the Survivor camp. So before I say the following, I just want to make it clear, I am absolutely not in favor of the generational conflict. I appreciate that it's one of those things where it's a little bit more complex than, it's not just like one person or one group saying, oh, these people suck. It's a little bit more complex. There's various factors. I do think it is something we should try to resolve. Generational conflict, like race conflict and, anti-immigration sentiment and such, it doesn't always necessarily start with like rich, powerful people. And no, I'm not saying like Jewish people. Sure, some of them are Jewish, but the Jewish ones are not worse than the ones who are not Jewish. A lot of them are white Christians. But, a lot of it, if not started by the powerful, it is egged on by them because they want to distract us from the conflict that we should be focusing on, which is class conflict. That is the one that makes sense to keep fighting until we win. Generational conflict, like, let's hypothetically say that, one of the generations wins over the others. That wouldn't actually solve things, By the way, if you haven't already, I absolutely recommend, I'm probably going to mess up his name, going from memory, wrists too sore to check, I think Tom Nicholas is his name, his Nebula video, crap, what's it called, I think it might just be called Boomers, I think Boomers is part of the title. I'm fairly confident. Certainly, if you look, again, I'm pretty sure his name is Tom Nicholas, up on, yeah, and right, and the trailer for his, Nebula video is right here on YouTube. So even if you don't have Nebula yet and you want to make sure you find it before you sign up for Nebula or something, yeah, if you search for like Boomer's trailer or something, I'm almost certain it'll find. Let's see, yeah, yes, so the following I say neutrally. I'm not judging either generation. With Amy, we see sort of the impatience and, like, lack of perspective of youth. And with the elderly guy, we see, years of experience and, wisdom. He points out worrying is not going to change anything. And it's absolutely true. And that is one of those things. Again, just the writing. Each character has a voice, and it feels so organic to that character. It doesn't feel... I don't feel like any character is just like a mouthpiece or just like a self-insert by a writer or something. Everyone feels like a real person, I've met people, in real life who are, middle-aged or older who also point out, it's not, hyper-focusing on something is not going to make time pass faster. It's just going to make it feel slower. It's not helping anything. Try to focus on something else, And I think that does bring us nicely to the mother character who, yeah, right, I appreciate the thing about, how do we know which ones are toxic? Shane knows, I gotta say, when she said there's only one way to know, I was like, please don't say taste test. But no, thankfully, yeah. And right, Shane, really, really happy to see John Bernthal in something again. Just, I know some people don't like that he plays a lot of characters who I wouldn't say that they're necessarily that similar, but there's one major element that is fairly similar, and it is this kind of intensity and preparedness to do really, brutal things, things that can seem cold and even heartless to others, to accomplish the goal they have. There is this sort of military quality. Not all of them are military, but there is that quality to them. Clearly, that's something he, as an actor, finds appealing. He wants to play roles like that, and when he's this good at it, and he plays them so distinctly differently. Like, okay, so the things I've seen him in are this, Fury, The Punisher. I can't believe I'm blanking on the last one. I swear I won't take forever to remember. Holy crap, do I seriously not remember the last? I guess I'm just gonna move on then. Okay, but the bear, yeah, the bear. I wouldn't necessarily say like military, but he is very intense there as well. Each of these he plays so distinctly differently. Like, if I didn't, if I hadn't seen the his list of credits, and someone told me, oh, they're like quintuplets, you know, each of them plays one of these roles, like, I would have to like consider, is that good? Because they're so distinctly different. Like, I believe that I could see, like, if you showed me 3 seconds of a completely out of context clip of something that, obviously would have to be something that doesn't show something that would give it away, but just, like a close-up of his face, and he's not saying another character's name or something, I believe I would be able to place which of the different, yeah. And now that I think about it, I want to say it's called Wind River, the one that has Elizabeth Olsen and Jeremy Renner, but isn't MCU. Yeah. And in that one, he's also, so distinctly different. Anyway, yeah. The thing with, yeah, so the mother, walks off and, says, oh, I gotta go collect, so, and I love how long they spend with her anxious in the forest, and we hear, like, rustling, and like, it genuinely, it is this thing of like, I mean, there could be a walker pretty much anywhere, or I guess a survivor who, wants to like hold her hostage and demand some of their resources or something, like, it's a very dangerous world. And yeah, yeah, and let's see, if I recall, we don't even see right away that it's Shane. Like, he does, yeah, when he, like, someone grabs her, and at first we don't realize that it's Shane. Just fantastic, and then we realize, oh, this was like a rendezvous because they don't want to do it in a tent, which, I'm not saying I have personal experience, but I do hear that is not the most pleasant, especially when there's other people so close by, and the there's that line about, what kept you, you kept me waiting, and she's like, well, I had to wait for the Mushroom Queen. The Mushroom Queen? The Mushroom Queen, who lives on Drury Lane. And let's see, then we have the, yeah, they are indeed very much a couple with all that entails. Like, it was clear they were a couple by the end of episode 1, but yeah, I mean, you could maybe deduce that there was a sexual relationship, but the element that she does feel that, she has to take off the ring and, the camera focuses on the ring. She does still wish she could be with, so yeah. And I really appreciate that it shows clear, like, consent. Like, you can see from her face. Let's see, I don't think there was like verbal consent, at least in the immediate scene, but the fact that she went out there, it's clear that this was, they had agreed that this, but, you look at her face, she's clearly, yeah. And let's see, yeah, it shows foreplay, which, there's sadly a lot of young male misogynists who don't think that men should engage in foreplay with women, which is just ridiculous. And it also shows clear female desire, which is also something that's gone erased for entirely too long. That it actually it sounds ridiculous to say out loud, but for a huge chunk, really the majority of, yeah, of human existence. And let's say, I'm not sure it's completely universal. I'm not saying it is, but a significant chunk of humanity, denied that women actually felt desire, and or insisted that it was terrible that they felt desire. Which, like, a lot of it is just male insecurity, male fragility. Now, let's see. But yeah. It is very clear in this scene she also desires sex. And yeah, I think that is everything that I had to say for this episode. I really appreciate that the characters we meet in this episode, by the end, they are, except for Merle, obviously, well on their way to, getting back to safety. I think it would have felt just, yeah, really, really drawn out if they had insisted on not getting them all the way to, out of the city yeah. And I will say, when the black guy locked the there was a second there where I was like, oh, he is going to go back, and because we saw the tools fall, he's gonna grab one of the tools, throw it to Merle, and then leave. But if he had, he probably would have ended up, yeah, dinner for a walker or 5. And he does make sure to lock the door so that the walkers can't, it's extremely unlikely the walkers are going to be able to get to Merle. It's one thing to break through glass, but this, like, other door that's, yeah. And I don't know for sure about the sewer thing, but I could imagine that there are those kinds of grates to keep people from, yeah, getting into stores and such through sewers, because they're worried about looting, more so than they're worried about, if they're paying a livable wage. I am 100%, if you need to steal something to, feed yourself or someone else starving, or, you need, like, diapers or something, for your baby, I really think that should not be seen as some terrible thing. ACAB, I feel like I might not have said that in a little while, bears repeating. And, as far as I know, like, basically, like, manhole covers are not exactly locked. Like, if you have something that can lift a manhole cover, I'm not sure you can do it with your own hands. I think you might need something to lift it with. But anyway, if you can do that, you can essentially walk around the sewers, as far as I know. So yeah, they block off places like that they don't want people to be able to break into through the sewers. And really, the vast majority of the time, who's gonna go into the sewers? Like, occasionally, they have to send some people down to find kids, 80s kids who are, you know, trying to find the Ninja Turtles and not deterred by the possibility of Morlocks.